Hello,
Are
we're
we
going
on?
to take a couple minutes for everybody to get on. We'll be starting here in just 1 second. Okay, it looks like our webinar is full. Hello, welcome to Builder Partnerships Webinar Wednesday. Our webinar today is your bottom line top of mind. We'll provide great construction cost saving strategies for this challenging time. But do remember, much of what you learn here today is timeless and is extremely beneficial in good times too. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items. Chuck, if you want to switch the slide.
Got it.
Although you are all muted, we still encourage you to ask questions. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a speech bubble that says Q&A. Please feel free to ask questions there. If possible, we will get to them as quickly as they come up, but we'll likely reserve them until the end. If you are watching the replay, please feel free to send us an email and we will get back to you as quickly as possible. Of course, we always welcome your comments and suggestions. Today's presenters are Chuck Shinn and Ed Hauck, both of which have been in the industry for nearly 75 years combined. We won't say who's been in the industry longer, but both are experts in this field. Ed has been working with Chuck on this topic for many, many years. Before I pass everything over to Chuck and Ed, we do want to thank our sponsors who make all of this possible, AZEK and Sildry. AZEK Building Products is a worldwide manufacturer of exterior composite building materials. Their core products consist of decking, railing, trim, and siding to help builders, contractors, and homeowners create beautiful accents for their exterior of their home. In recent years, they have implemented one of the industry's best warranty packages for the peace of mind that lets you know when installed. All of our products will perform for many years to come. If you're interested in additional information in regards to our builder incentive programs, feel free to reach out to your local representative or contact me personally at contact Wade Vig at 385-224-7547 or email him at wvig@timbertech.com. Sildry wishes you safety and good health throughout this global crisis. They know that in times of crisis, you have many things to think about and want to thank you for taking the time to work on improving your business. Sildry was born by focusing on tackling one of the largest problems facing all builders, water intrusion, and how to deal with it the same way every time. With building codes focused on energy efficiency and tightening buildings, that means that preventing water damage is more important than ever. Builders are faced with many challenges, including availability of labor, and the crisis will only exacerbate that challenge. Sildry provides a solution that's 100% made in the USA, has zero waste, can be used in all weather conditions, and be installed by one person in less than 15 seconds. Sildry is the only one-piece expandable sill drainage system in the world. Sildry exceeds all of the 2018 building codes, and with its built-in slope and shims, makes sure that your crews are installing windows and doors the same way every time. When you use Sildry, you will sleep better at night knowing that water is going where you want it to go, out of the structure immediately. For more information, please visit them at sildry.com. So to kick off the webinar, we want to remind you of a quote by Simon Sinek. Value is not determined by those who set the price. Value is determined by those who choose to pay it. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Chuck and Ed.
Oh, thank you, Emma Jane. I really appreciate that. And I also appreciate our two sponsors. The sponsors they're both members of Builder Partnerships, so you can contact us also if you would like to get more information. You can contact my office and we will get you in touch with these two members of Builder Partnerships. But they allow us to do these webinars. As Emma Jane said, we have Webinar Wednesday where we're trying to give you webinars, especially during this period of time where everybody is sheltered in place, to help you through this crisis and to give you some ideas of how to improve your processes and your procedures. We have a series going through this, and Emma Jane will talk about the series at the end of the presentation. Today, I'm going to be the main presenter, and we're going to go through a whole bunch of ideas, probably can reduce your direct construction cost in excess of $10,000 if you implement some of the ideas that we're going to be talking about. Ed is going to be my color commentator as we go through this. And Ed has been with me probably he talks about 22 years. He's probably been with me almost all the 22 years. But he was able to get his direct construction cost down in the 36, 38% of sales price range by using a bunch of the ideas that we're going to present today so that you have some idea. And it's just, there's going to be a ton of ideas and a laundry list of ideas that go through. I want to start off talking about some of the things that I look at. It really talks about the financing of the company. And I start out and I said, what's the dynamics of a sales price change? I say, the decision to increase your sales price increases your marginal rate of profitability. So if I increase my sales price by $5,000 and I'm a 100 unit a year builder, that is going to give me a potential increase in profits of $500,000. That's based on the fact that I didn't have any cost increases. I just went in and raised my sales price $5,000. The problem with that is the increase in your sales price has a potential of reducing your velocity of sales. So there's a risk when you end up raising your sales price. So just be aware of that all of a sudden I'm not as competitive as I was before I raised my sales price. The dynamics of your operating expenses, and this is, all of us are going through this right now, is, okay, my sales are down. What do I do with my staff? What do I do with my office? What do I do with my fixed costs in the organization? But that doesn't have as big a dynamic impact on the company as other decisions. So make the comment here, the decision to decrease your operating expenses does not increase your marginal rate of profit. What it means is if I reduce my operating expenses by $5,000, I will only increase my profits by $5,000 or my margin by $5,000. And I make the comment here that this is typically the first action taken by builders in a softening market. So we first look at, okay, can I get rid of superintendents? Can I get rid of somebody out of my purchasing department? Can I get rid of somebody out of my design center? Can I get, what do I do there? But when you look at it, it has minimal impact of improving your margins in the operation. So if I go to direct construction costs and look at direct construction costs, the decision of reducing construction costs increases my marginal rate of profitability. So a reduction in direct construction costs of $5,000 for a 100 unit a year builder will have exactly the same impact as raising my sales price. It is going to increase my profitability by by $500,000. Okay, so that's exactly what happened with increasing my sales price by $5,000. But the reduction in construction costs typically do not impact my sales velocity. So as opposed to running the risk of reducing your sales velocity or the number of sales, if I can reduce my direct construction cost, it will have an impact, will have the same impact as raising my sales price, but I will not run the risk of reducing my velocity of sales in the operation. So one of the things that I look at here is I said the sales price can be reduced dollar for dollar for the construction cost reduction. What I'm saying is if I can reduce my direct construction cost $5,000, I can reduce my sales price by $5,000. That makes me more competitive, and it may cause the fact that I will increase my velocity. The other thing that happens is it's also going to increase my profit percentages because I didn't take any of the margin out of the house. I just took the additional $5,000 that I saved by reducing my costs. So I get a double win. I get increased velocity and I get increased profitability in the operation. So by doing this, it has a fantastic impact on my company. I make the comment that many builders will increase operating expenses to reduce construction costs due to the dramatic impact of reducing construction costs has on profitability. So maybe I will increase my staff in my purchasing department to negotiate better prices. Maybe I will get more supervision out in the field to make sure that the houses are built consistently the same way all the time, so that I am able to reduce my cost of construction. So again, this is a trade-off, but the trade-off might be the opposite of what we typically think of the way of trying to gain control in a soft market as we go through this. So we're going to go through and talk about a number of things. First, we're going to start off talking about construction cost saving measures and some of the things that we can do. And I make the comment here, construction cost is the largest cost classification. Typically for most builders, when we first get started working with builders, the direct construction cost represents somewhere between 55 and 62% of the sales price. For my position, it's too high to allow for superior profits because it's typically going to cost you about 18% to run your business, somewhere between 18 and 20% to run the business. So if you look at, I've got 55 to 62% in direct construction cost. I got about 20% in my land, or maybe 22% in my land, and it cost me 18% to run. There's nothing left for profit. So one of the things that we look at is the biggest cost is a variable cost in the operation. That's my direct construction cost. So if I can tackle that, it is going to have a dramatic impact on my company. So when we talk about cost of sales is typically the land and direct construction cost. And I need to have that somewhere around 70% of or less to generate halfway decent profits through my organization. The reduction in variable costs also increases the marginal rate of profitability, which we just talked about. If I can reduce my construction cost by $10 per cost code, and typically, so I'm only going to look at $10. All I want is $10 per cost code. Well, typically, I'm going to have somewhere around 100 cost codes per house. That's my direct construction costs. And if I can get $10 per cost code, that means that I have reduced my costs by $1,000 per house, or increased my profits $1,000 per house. And again, if I'm a 100 unit a year builder, that puts $100,000 to the bottom line. And all I went after was $10. And I look at this and I said that's pretty easy. When I start talking about all I'm looking for is $10. But what I look at here is I need to continually monitor and control and reduce direct construction costs. I got to attack it on every front that I possibly can attack it on. Now, in the market that we're going to be coming out with, probably it's probably going to be a buyer's market because the buyers have been pretty scared. And when I look at that, you know, I don't have the ability to raise my prices to cover any kind of increase in costs or to cover my costs. And what it also means is I need to discount my sales price. And we're already seeing the public builders. There's been articles written and reports that I've gotten that the publics are not going to necessarily reduce their sales price, but they're going to start discounting and promotions and things of that nature. But look at discounting. Let's say you discount $20,000 off your house. That's $20,000 of lost profit because 100% of what you discount is profit dollars. How many more houses do you have to build to make up for that $20,000 you just discounted? If you're a 5% net profit builder and you just gave $20,000 away, you got to multiply that $20,000 by 20. So I got to sell another $400,000 worth of house to make up for the $20,000 I just discounted. So I look at it, I say, well, the better way of doing this is controlling and reducing my costs are critical, especially in today's market that we're entering into if we ever get out of this crisis that we're into. So what do we look at and how do we do it? We talked about the sales price needs to be set to generate velocity. So typically what I start off with is, okay, what velocity do I want out of this community? How many sales do I want? And what is the sales price that I need to set in order for me to get that velocity out of that? And then I need to have, each house has to generate adequate gross profits. Gross profit is your sales price minus your cost of land and direct construction costs. To come up with a contribution margin to contribute to profit. Well, contribution is the gross profit minus the variable operating expenses. That's your sales commissions and things of that nature. And it has to cover all your fixed operating expenses and generate a target profit. So kind of construction costs and savings is critical today. Direct construction costs are the variable costs. However you look at it, basically your variable costs and all your profit and your financial numbers, your variable cost is the one that you control the most. The direct construction cost is the one that you need to really work on. And you need to attack it everywhere. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the things. Let's look at design. First off, I want you to question the engineers. I want you to question the truss engineer. I want you to, your structural engineer. I want to question everything. Typically, we don't do that. Typically, what happens is we just accept the truss design. We just accept the engineer and his sizing of the beams, the structural components that we set up. We don't question them. What we have to do is go in and question. And it's a couple of things that we look at. And I'm just, again, look at the things that we pay attention to. Your floor system, glue and nailed versus screwed floor system. Well, if I glue and nail it, what happens is the joists act together. We tie it. The joists are no longer considered a single unit. It's a repetitive unit. And by doing that, I'm going to increase the stiffness of my floor, and I can reduce the size of my of my joists, or increase my spacing of my joists in the floor system because I glued and screwed it, as opposed to nailing the floors. The size and the spacing of the floor joists, that ought to be paid attention to. You ought to be asking the engineer of alternate ways of developing or putting your floor system together. Can I reduce the floor joists? Can I increase the spacing of my floor joists? Again, what do I look at as I begin to design my system? And then also what the beam sizes are. When I find out, when we used to question the engineer, is the engineer has the same old tattered page in his span tables, and he's never looking at alternate ways of doing things. And what I want to do is I want to go question him and ask him, is there an alternate way of doing this? Is there a different way to save money by changing the structural design that you've presented to me in the operation? Same thing with your trusses. We were dealing with a builder down in Orlando. And she met with the framer and the truss designer. And in about 45 minutes, she saved $1,500 off the roof system, off the trusses, on a 45-minute meeting but between the two of them. And that was her most popular plan. So all of a sudden, across all the plans, she's been able to reduce, and I say she because it was a female builder, but she was able to reduce somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 per house on the truss system that she was using in the houses. The other thing you want to question when I start talking about engineering is question your HVAC system. Look at the size of the furnace, the size of the air conditioning equipment, the size of the ductwork. And again, here and this truss design and the floor joist design and the beam design and the HVAC system, go to your manufacturer. The manufacturer has people that can sit there and design this stuff for you, as opposed to relying on your subcontractor or your lumber yard or whatever. Go back to the manufacturer and talk to the manufacturer and have them help you design the systems. Again, you can do this through builder partnerships. You can contact us and say, okay, I'm using one of your HVAC people. Do they have somebody that can design my system for me? Yes, and here's the number to call, and this is the person to talk to. Say, if it's LP, go Ed.
You know, one of the things you bring up is, I'm here. One of the things you bring up is not only questioning, you got multiple professionals involved with this. I mean, Chuck, you just brought up, I have my architect, I have an engineer possibly on the design. You just brought up manufacturers, I have lumber yards. More often than not, I mean, I spend a lot of time in this arena, always questioning and pushing. A lot of times it just keep asking the question, why are we spending so much money? Think about all the different people you can leverage. I have a very good architect locally at home. I still question him. About half the time I question him, I'm right, that they didn't look at it that way. Again, go back to your design professionals, you know, go back to a manufacturer, question them. I much prefer going back to an I-joist company than I do going to a lumberyard. I don't always know that the person at the lumberyard, possibly they are well-trained, but typically I get a lot more bang for my buck out of going back to the manufacturer and questioning them. All through the engineering, you know, there's just untapped resources in questioning these designs. Just worked with a small volume builder just last week, just on the trusses. We didn't change anything as what it looked like from the buyer's perspective. We changed a couple little truss details here and there. It was $1,000. It was 10% of the truss cost just by questioning the design engineer on the trusses. It's simple money. You just got to ask for it. You got to question them. You just got to review it.
And this ought to all be done at product design. The problem is we typically just talk to the architect and we talk to our salespeople, we talk to the owner, and we do the product design, and we don't bring any of this into the process. But even if you got a plan now, go back and take a look at it. It's probably not going to change the look of the plan, but it's going to change the cost of the plan. And that's what we're after. Change the cost of the plan. Okay, anything else?
More often than not, it never changes anything that a buyer or sales will ever notice. Nothing, almost everything we're talking about, nobody ever notices this stuff. It's all behind the scenes. I usually set a standard design criteria of what my level is, and then work from there.
Yeah, none of the stuff that we're talking about here will impact your curb appeal. Not one thing in this hour and a half that we're going to be talking about will change the curb appeal of your product. Okay? Design around the material sizes. That's going to reduce the cutting and the waste, and it's also going to reduce the framer's time on your job site and make it simpler for him to frame the operation or her to frame the operation. So it might be able to go and negotiate price with your framer on what we're doing. Eliminate corners. That's going to decrease your cost also. It decrease the ratio of linear foot of exterior wall to interior square footage if you begin to reduce the corners. Now, what I'm looking at is if I'm going to put corners in, I need the corners on the front elevation. I need to minimize the amount of corners that I have on the side elevations and the back elevations, because every time I do a corner, or every time I do an offset or a transition from one plane to another plane, I'm reducing square footage. So what I have here is watch your front elevation, focus your dollars there. You need to get the buyers out of their car. You need to make the front of the house marketable and exciting. So I'm not going to necessarily impact my front elevation. That's where I'm going to put my wow factor. That's where I'm going to put my corners. But the rest of the house, I'm going to try to streamline and make it simpler to use. Exterior dimensions, try to use 2-foot modules for your exterior dimensions. That's outside to outside. It's not inside to inside, outside to outside. And the most efficient box that you can build is a 28 by 40. You're going to get the most, that's the most efficient triangle to give you the most square footage for the exterior lineal feet of wall. Okay, and then we look at it and I say, do it multiples of 4 foot, multiples in both directions. You're going to get more square footage for the amount of exterior wall. Use economical spans on your floors and your roofs. A 24 to 32 foot depth of the rectangle is where you need to be for your efficiencies in the size of your floor joists and your roofing systems. L-shaped designs. That's 2 rectangles. That's a lot more efficient and has fewer corners than a T, a U, or an H. So again, just in design and how you design the product, you begin to look at the cost in the operation. And H is probably the most expensive. And Ed, I don't know if you want to comment here or not, but again,
yeah, I mean,
my
I was
design.
waiting for you to get to the end. Yeah, I was waiting for you to get to the end of this section here. When I'm working with builders, I always get well, it doesn't work that way in my market. And you know, through Chuck, I pretty much have done plan reviews in every state in the union. I think I missed Hawaii somehow, but in every area of the country, everybody has certain designs. And to everything Chuck's talking about, if you just take 1 or 2 of these pieces out, you're going to find money. I always start out with giving the architect the size of my box. I want them to decide. I don't want them to decide what's my product's going to be. I want to give them the sizes. I'm going to maximize my efficiencies, give you my joists, my trusses, everything Chuck mentioned. I give them as much as I can to get them started. And Chuck said in the previous slide about the elevation. Elevations is money. I can't tell you how many times I'm walking product in a builder and I see all kinds of stuff in the back of the house. The one builder I was with, we had to walk back behind the house and up a hill to see all this overbuild on the roof. We pulled $4,000 of overbuild on a roof that they never knew was back there. Money is in the front. And like Chuck said, pay attention to that. Pay attention, make sure it's appropriate. Make sure you have an elevation 1 to get started that has great curb appeal, and then work your way up. But again, I started out with giving the architects the size of my box, tell them my joist spans, give them all that information, even limit them to how many offsets I can have on the front. And I try to have 0 offsets on the back. It doesn't always work, but at least limit them. I see just countless offsets for no reason. And then look up and see what the impact of that is on your roof line. It's money that buyers are never going to pay for.
The next slide that I put up here, that after the T's and the U's and the H's, but design windows and doors to fall on stud spacing. I'm going to save it 1 to 2 studs per window by just having them fall on my stud spacing. And then reduce the number of windows. I mean, you go into a secondary bedroom and you find 3 windows in a secondary bedroom. Why? Why are they doing that? And then limit your windows to 2 to 3 different sizes, maybe 4, 5, but have standard windows so that every one of your houses is using those windows as you go through the operation. And you need to get, if you're going to do this, you need to give the framer a start point on the set of plans, and you got to enforce it that he starts at this point in his layouts every time. Because if he starts any place else, all your windows are not going to fall on your stud spacing. And it's going to cost you another two studs per window opening that you have in the operation. So again, this is all planning at the front end to be efficient in the design. Build over the garage. It's cheap square footage. You can use an attic truss and put a bonus room up there. You can do all kinds of things. Maybe a 3rd bedroom or a 4th bedroom can go up over top of the garage. But it's very cheap space that you can do. The other thing is cantilever over your foundations. I can put a 2-foot cantilever overhang over my foundation. What that is going to allow me to do is it's not going to change my floor joist span conditions, and it's going to eliminate foundation corners, which become very expensive. If you've never done unit pricing for your foundation people, they're charging me for every corner that I put into my foundation. So again, it's going to make it a simpler process for us as we go forward. Open up the interior floor plan. Put fewer interior walls in the house, eliminate the hallways. Use the living triangle, which ties the eating facility or eating area, the kitchen, and the living area together. And what that happens is the kitchen becomes the focal point, and that's where I'm going to put some money in the house. And as I design the house, but it's going to eliminate a lot of walls by using that living triangle. The other thing is on your stairs. A straight run of stairs is the most efficient, and then have the stairs run parallel to your joist. That's going to reduce the amount of framing that goes on with the stair facilities that you're putting on into the house. Cluster and stack your plumbing. Again, this is part of the design. Your kitchen, your laundry, your powder room, your bedroom, your water heater, have all that stuff. Think about the distribution of the plumbing and how much plumbing pipe needs to go in and how it's distributed through the house. That has an impact on your plumbing bed. So try to get this stuff clustered. Heating and cooling equipment, probably centrally located somewhere in the house. It's in the basement. Now, if you're going to finish the basement off, maybe the central location is not the best, but your system is going to work better. It's going to be cheaper if you put your HVAC system centrally in the house. Okay.
So Chuck, on this last two slides, one thing I want to point out, everything that Chuck just said is pure money, everything. However, the purchase department has to be able to know all these little details. And while you're meeting with trades, don't send bids out, send plans out for bid. You have to meet with trades and tell them everything you did, everything that Chuck just talked about with a framer. If you don't tell them, you're paying full price for your frame. Whatever your local square footage price is, you're paying. If I don't sit there and talk to my plumber on how I stack things, how I make things easier, my HVAC guy, if I'm doing central cold air returns versus individual, if you don't tell them all these details, they're going to charge you, and you're just putting more money in their pocket. You have to know all these details and actually sit down, and that's part of your negotiating process with your trades. Let them know that this is all out. Chuck just talked about these open floor plans. They're the rage. And I see all the time that builders have these open floor plans, but they're not telling the framer. From one plan to the next, they're paying the same square footage. It's wide open. But you have to sit down and meet with your trades and let them know this so you can negotiate it out. Otherwise, they're going to charge you.
Right. On your slabs, slab on grade. A monolithic concrete slab is the cheapest. It's the least costly. Your footing and your floor is one pour. If you're in the north, a frost-protected shallow foundation is the least least costly, and in the northern climates. So, and people say, well, I can't do slab in the north. Yes, you can. Well, I gotta do a basement. No, you don't. Okay, here's the monolithic pour. It's the cheapest way of doing it. In Denver, Colorado, we basically we're always a basement market. We had one or two builders that came in and did monolithic foundations, a cold foundation, which is the next one that I'm going to show, and they've had great success with it because of the cost, how much cheaper it is to build with this kind of a foundation. This is your frost-protected shallow foundation. And what I've done, it's the same. It's a monolithic poured slab, but I have insulation along the edge and then horizontally out in the earth to protect the slab. So again, this can be done in the northern climates. It can reduce my cost. Okay, inline framing. Use 2-foot modules. Generally the most cost effective and greater flexibility. The other thing is I can do a direct transfer of the loads from my truss to my wall to my foundation, and simplifies framing layouts. All floor, wall, and framing and roof framing is coordinated so that when I'm looking at my plans, they are making sure that the first floor framing and the second floor framing and my truss framing is all identical as we go through. And so I got the same spacing. That'll allow me to do a single top plate as opposed to a double top plate. It's simpler construction. And I vertically align my framing. That's going to allow my mechanical roughs and my plumbing roughs. They don't have to jog around. It's going to eliminate elbows, and it's going to eliminate all the mess that we have and trying to get the runs from the first floor to the second floor and the battle of the bays. Now, every one of my bays is available to my mechanical trades. Ed, you want to make a comment about that?
Yeah, I mean, Chuck's point, you know, once I have all these things lined up, most builders don't understand that if I have a 2,200 square foot house, 4-bedroom house, I still have the same amount of runs that goes in to supply plumbing and HVAC as does a 3,000. I just got a lot less places to do it. This simplifies things. If I sit down and meet with my HVAC and my plumbing contractors and my framers and explain how much easier I'm making this is money. This is easy stuff to get back from them. But if I don't talk to the framer and my HVAC and plumber, they're not going to take that off. I have to design these things in. The other thing I always say is, if I'm going through the effort of doing this, I want to show it on the plans. I want the trades to understand what I've done for them. That way, I'm not trying to take profit off the table for them. I'm trying to just take the time out that they're counting in. Bad plans, I always say, bad plans are probably about 3 to 5% in direct construction costs because the trades don't know what it is, so therefore they have to make it up. So if you design this stuff in, make sure they know it's there.
Yeah, look at the drawing that I have up here right now. Single top plate, and what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a fitch plate to tie the top plates together. I've got my windows on my stud layouts, and I'm stacking my stud layouts, my floor joists, my studs for the first floor, single top plate, stud exactly lined up for the second floor, and then I'm going to put my trusses on top, lined up exactly, and that's all 2-foot modules that I framed up. So a heck of a lot less material is going to go. It's the same house, it's the same size, and in fact, this is 2-foot modules that we've got here. It is going to be thermally better than a 16-inch on center wall because I'm going to fully insulate that 24 inches. I don't have any dead spots in my wall system to where I can't insulate. So if you follow what we're talking about here, it is unbelievable at what it's going to do. It's going to reduce your cost and increase the performance of your product. Okay, on your trusses, clear span trusses, it's going to put the direct load on the exterior walls. It's going to give us much more flexibility on the interior of the house. I don't have any load-bearing walls. I don't have any load-bearing headers over top of windows and top of doors. And I'm going to be able to do a much more open floor plan as we go through. The other thing is with my trusses, the roof pitch of the trusses. First off, if I'm doing an 812 or greater pitch on my roof, it is a non-walkable roof. Typically, a walkable roof is below an 812 pitch. So my cord, probably on my top cord on my trusses, I want to have it as a 7.5 12. Nobody's going to be able to tell the difference, but now I've got a walkable roof. Now, am I going to talk to my roofer about that? Absolutely. I'm going to tell him, you know, this is a walkable roof because it's a 7.5 12. It's not an 812 pitch roof. The other thing with the top cord, adjust the top cord to 2-foot modules. That's going to eliminate all the cutting of my roof deck material. And it's going to simplify the framing for my framer if I do this. So things here, non-load bearing walls internally in the house can be 2-foot spacing of my studs, and I can use 2x3 framing as opposed to 2x4 framing. Again, it's something that I don't see much of, but that it is a non-load bearing wall. So all I am doing is putting up a petition. Okay, the wall intersections, frame it with ladder tees. That's going to save me 2 studs per wall intersection. And it's also going to allow me to insulate the wall intersection as opposed to having the 3 studs which gives me dead space at the end of every one of my interior walls where I cannot insulate the exterior wall. So we take a look at this. This happens to be a non-load bearing wall from ceiling to floor, but the same thing from interior wall to exterior wall. My non-load bearing wall or my interior wall, I'm going to use scrap that's on the job site. I'm going to put a cross brace at 2 foot, 4 foot, and 6 foot for an 8 foot high ceiling. If it's a 10 foot high ceiling, I'm going to put another excuse me, cross bracing at 8 feet. I'm going to be able to insulate that whole area. And I've basically used scrap, and it's saving me 2 studs every wall intersection that I've got in the operation. Ed, any comments?
So what you just described, Chuck, and I tell everybody who knows me knows that I'm very particular about how I put something together. Nobody ever notices that if I did all these interior walls, all these interior non-bearing walls at 2 foot on center, nobody ever notices. I'll still be a purist to make sure my kitchen wall is got 16 inches because I got cabinets and other stuff. Okay, you know, I cheat a little bit on some of the interior walls. Just by doing what Chuck described, on a 250 square foot house, usually yields back 125 to 150 studs per house. That's $3 a stud. That's $750 that nobody even knows is different. The biggest thing that as I do this, everything that Chuck just talked about, if I don't make sure that estimating is estimating it, I'm not dealing and talking with my framer on how he's pricing it. By the way, that's 150 less studs the framer has to install. You got to tell him that. The other thing is when we do field audits, I see all the time that I'm on plans, I see these detail on plans. In reality, usually what happens is I see the variance report before I get there, and I already know what to look for because they're not doing it in the field because the framers do everything by what we always do. That's how we always do it. You got to teach them how to do it this way. Once they do it this way, it's easy. Chuck talked to all those interior non-bearing headers. That's money. They're just wasting money.
Not only that, but think about how fast he can frame his walls. I'm framing my walls 2 foot on center, and I don't have to worry about layout. I have to pay attention to my start point. But as I do my interior walls, I'm going to take that scrap, the dead wood, and I'm going to put it into the wall. But the wall was framed 2 foot, boom, 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 all the way down, tilted up. And I'm not going to worry about where that interior wall goes until I'm tilting up the interior wall. And at that point, I put in my scrap dead wood to support the interior wall. It speeds the whole process up as you go through. Okay, 2 stud corners. At the end studs for each wall panel, I'm going to put drywall clips or 1x3 or 1x4 for my drywall, and it's going to save again 2 studs at each one of these. And here's a diagram of how this works. So I got 2 studs in the corner with some dead wood, or I use a drywall clip to support the drywall. But that's all I need. That's going to save me 1 stud plus the blocking, and they're going to cut the blocking out of another stud and throw the rest of it away. So it saves me basically 2 studs every corner that I've got in the house. Okay. Material usage. One of the things that we're talking about all these ways of saving. If I don't do an as-built audit to verify the fact that they're framing it and building it the way I've designed it, I'm probably still using a lot of material. Maybe it's going to show up as variances and so forth. But I need to verify, and I need to instruct the framer. I need to instruct my trades on exactly how I want them to install it. I need to put those details in the plans. Maybe I'm going to spend a little more money on my plans and getting these details in, but I'm going to recoup it 10 times over as I go through my building process. The other thing is return all your excess material. Don't stack it. Don't store it. Don't throw it away. Return it and document it back to estimating. So estimating can correct the takeoffs and then document it back to accounting. So accounting can take the credit for the material that was returned. And then reduce the number of dumpsters. And this is policing the operation. but I go through and look at dumpsters, and I got all these boxes. That's dead airspace. And they filled up the dumpster. The dumpster's going to come. It cost me so much per load. Have the instructions that everybody needs to break the boxes down before they put them into the dumpster. The other thing that I did was the dumpster was for material that I supplied. If they supplied the material, they get to take their empty boxes back. They had enough room in their truck or their delivery van to bring the material. They got enough room in their truck to take their boxes, their empty boxes, and their scrap away from the job site. So that dumpster is for my purposes. It's not for every trade's purposes out there on the job site.
So
Okay,
Chuck,
more
to
ways
that
to,
point,
yeah.
So to that point, most builders start putting dumpsters on site, and our trades start thinking that's for their convenience. It's not for their convenience. To Chuck's point, is you have to police those dumpsters. You start finding out these trades are filling the dumpsters up, cleaning out their trucks on Friday afternoon. You know, the other thing Chuck talked about, cardboard. In some areas, you can get a cardboard dumpster that literally is a hauling fee. There's no cost for dumping. So at least that goes back to one of Edmund's favorite words is the discipline, signage. You know, let trades know what that's all about. You know, as we start looking at variance reports, I see 3 and 4 dumpsters a house, and they're only budgeting for 1 to 1.5. So you got to watch and police what goes in those dumpsters.
Right, right. Okay, this is a laundry list of a ton of ideas that we're going to go through. So this is where your money is dribbling through your fingers and the operation. Number 1, improve your working drawings. Make sure you get the framing details and the start points on your framing on your plans and enforce them. That's the discipline. Your superintendent needs to enforce the framing details and how everything is supposed to go together. Give them a diagram. I can't believe how complicated framers can make that simple wall intersection detail where we're just trying to use deadwood to tie the walls together. I go in and I look at it and I said, "Boy, you made this the most complicated thing in the world." So give them a diagram of what you're looking for. Give a diagram of how you want to frame a non-load bearing door. Give them a diagram of how you want to frame your windows and the operations. Again, Ed's got plenty of examples and pictures of how some of this stuff has gone together where they're just deadwood everywhere. And as they're trying to put this stuff together. Analyze your standard specifications. And again, we go back to the beginning of this program. Costs do not create value. The home buyer's perceived value is what we're after. That's where the value comes from. And if you look at your standard specification, it has an immediate impact on your cost. Change the level of specifications from the first floor to the second floor. I look at the first floor, that's my public area. The second floor is this private area, and it does not need to have the same level of finish that you have on the first floor of the house, okay? Issue complete construction start packages prior to the start of the house. That has a big impact on your costs. If the information is dribbling out to the superintendent, that is going to cost you lots of money. Do it all at the front end, give him a complete start package, and give him all the information that he needs to have. I prefer having all the selections done prior to the start of the house. Again, not having stuff changed during the construction process. Any kind of changes that occur during the construction process, it creates change orders, it creates slowness, it creates rework, it creates all kinds of issues. So the more that you can get this information out at the front end of the job site, the better off you. And what I had underneath there is all necessary information to the superintendent prior to the start of construction. Work with your trades to eliminate the inefficiencies. They work in it. They know where your inefficiencies are. What I would like to do is to sit down individually maybe or with a small group of my trades and talk to them And how can I reduce the number of trips that you're taking to my job sites? What about dry runs? How can we eliminate dry runs? How can we eliminate repeat trips that you have to make? What about lack of consistency from house to house to house to house, from superintendent to superintendent to superintendent that you have to deal with? What about the confusion that's occurring out on the job site? What is causing the confusion so that you have to slow down or you have to ask questions to try to figure out what you're supposed to be doing? What about inaccurate information that's coming out to you from the office, or you get a set of plans and then you get instructions to change from what the set of plans tell you to what the superintendent's telling you to do? How do you become the builder of choice? As far as and when I look at it as a builder of choice, my trades want to work for you because you're the builder of choice. And they will work for you for less money than they work for anybody else. And they feel like they're making more money by working with you than anybody else in your marketplace. And Ed's going to have a presentation here as part of these Wednesday webinars on builder of choice and what it takes to become the builder of choice. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Ed. Not.
Well, our builder choice is 10 different bullet points from a survey we had with trades. Real simply, builder choice is everything above that line, don't do it. I was helping a builder a couple of weeks ago on reducing his direct construction cost and going through the budgets. Everything that Chuck just talked about, I found all the issues in the budgets by variances, by change orders. When I start talking to the trades, we start doing. I mean, on our now environment, we can't travel. I start doing go-to meetings, Zoom meetings with the trades. What we found out is that the builder didn't realize how much change orders were affecting him, how many times dry runs were affecting him. All this stuff affects the trades, and eventually you get charged for it because you're inefficient.
Right. Okay, a couple other things. Gain control of your construction cost variances. Look at your variances by reason code. I see so many people going through and they have variance meetings and so forth, and they're approving every one of the variances that went through. Well, every one of the variances is $15 here, $150 there, $75 here, and so forth. But nobody's looking at the trends. Nobody's looking at the reasons. They're just looking at each individual variance and approving each individual variance. Go back through and look at them and sort them by reason code. What was the cause of this variance? And then you go through and you start coming up with plans of action to eliminate the biggest cause for the variance. And some of it is rework, some of it's damage by one trade for some work that another trade did. Some of it is more material that's needed. I mean, it's everything under the sun. But you got to analyze it. You've got to take action on it. Not just file those variance POs in the file cabinet, but you've got to eliminate them. The idea of a variance PO is that I want to eradicate that cost in my system, and that's what it's for. Too many people say, oh, it's just more management, it's just more paperwork that we process. No, it's critical information about what's going on in the field, in the operation. Improve your negotiating techniques. And I make a comment here, negotiate with intelligence, research, find out what, and bring that information to the negotiating table. What is negotiable? What is not negotiable? What should you be paying for this? What isn't? What is the true cost of what you're dealing with? Break up turnkey trades. If I buy material and labor separately, I could possibly save 15 to 25% on the material. That's the margin of markup that typically is going to a turnkey trade is going to have. A turnkey framer is probably about 12 to 15%. A turnkey plumber's probably got about 25% margin on anything that goes through his books. Now, the other thing is maybe you say, well, I don't want to handle material. Okay, break the two up, the labor and the material, and then assemble them again. Okay, so you are going to reduce, you're still going to pay a margin, but in that way, you're going to reduce the amount of margin that you're paying on the material. Improve your material inventory control. Inventory the materials when they're delivered. Now your superintendent's going to say, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time. But who's going to bust the bundles? It's the framer who busts the bands on the bundles. So I make it part of his job responsibility to count the material when he breaks the bundles. Once he breaks the bundles, I can't do an inventory. But what I want to do is I want him responsible. My interior trim guy, I want my interior trim guy responsible. I also want my material, my interior trim material, not delivered dumped on the garage floor that I just poured, so it's sucking up all the moisture out of that fresh concrete. I want it in a trim rack, on a trim rack, and I'd like to have it installed or that delivered in-house. It's much easier for me to control. It's much easier for me to count all that stuff if it's on a trim rack as opposed to just dumped on the floor in the garage. Because the garage is my construction entry, so everybody's going to walk on it until I use it. And so I want to protect my material upon the delivery and the installation as we go through. Increase the price. Increase the pricing of your popular options. This is for your selection center. Custom price request. If I have custom price requests, I should have an administrative fee that's charged. And sometimes I wonder if we can't charge more and more and more. And the fee that we have for custom price requests. And also increase the margins on your custom price requests over your other margins. Set an objective for your team to save $10 per cost code. We mentioned that earlier. But have everybody that has anything to do with your construction process talking about 10 cents, saving 10 cents here or there, or $10 here and there. And what I'd like to do is to have everybody, all my superintendents, come up with 50 ideas to reduce costs. Maybe I have my trades, I have a little competition, I have my trades, my superintendents, my laborers, whoever I have out there, and my purchasing people, anybody that has anything to do with costs, talk to them about, I want everybody to come up with 50 ways of reducing the construction costs and the operation and have it as a contest. Okay, some simple
Chuck,
ways.
Yes, I'm going to give you one quick comment on the customization. We hear this a lot, is that for whatever reason, your product line, your price point, you're forced to customize. One of the problems is we're afraid, we're too shy to charge appropriately. A custom option does not cost the same as a standard option. And if you actually can go back to a buyer and explain to them that we offer this has been optimized, and think about it, customization is amateur designs is what they are. They're nowhere near as efficient as what we're doing and pre-planning. So you should be able to get a lot more on any kind of a custom option. Also have a procedure in place. I'm not going to entertain every option. I see builders that are complaining about how many custom options they're quoting. That's because there's no process in front. You're quoting custom options for buyers that may not be able to afford it. At least guide the buyer on what's entertainable or not. Once you take that request, the buyers are thinking that they're going to get it. And if it's way out of the realm of affordability, all you're doing is disappointing a buyer right up front.
The other thing is you can guide them to a selection. They got a custom option. Okay, they want a 16-inch increase of a room. Well, maybe I have a standard 2-foot increase that I've designed for the room. Direct them to what you've designed. And you can do that by price. You can do it, but I've already got my plans done. I've already got my framers understanding what they're supposed to be doing. It's already done, as opposed to having a redo and a rework and effectively stop of construction waiting for the approval of a custom change. That is a killer for your whole system when you start doing that. Okay.
Agreed.
Here's a bunch of just bullet point ways to save money. Eliminate copper plumbing pipe anywhere in the house. Use PVC, CBPVC or PEX piping, and the change. A single sink in the master bath, or the main bath, as opposed to 2 sinks. The second sink can be an option that you put in the design center. This is talking about standard stuff that you're putting in the house. A pedestal sink in the powder room instead of a cabinet and a sink. It's going to cost you less money. Redesign your HVAC system. Reduce the duct size. Reduce the HVAC unit. Reduce the furnace unit. And again, that's by talking to your engineers and making sure. Change your hot water heater to a 40-gallon hot water heater. It's standard, and put a 50 or an 80 or whatever size hot water heater in as an option. Reduce the carpet and or the pad grade and the operation. I said and or because sometimes I can reduce the carpet, but I can leave in a pretty plush pad and it's still going to give me the same feel. Reduce the upper kitchen cabinets to 36-inch cabinets instead of 42-inch cabinets. And what you can do is you can raise the 32-inch cabinets up so that you can actually get a coffee maker underneath the cabinet. So it has basically the same appearance, but it's the 36 is a cheaper cabinet to go in. I know Ed's done this before.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with builders on the kitchen design, the 36s to 42s. If you do a 36-inch, I can do what looks like a two-piece crown, get the same visual and save money. The other thing I tell builders all the time is if you're using manufacturer product, look at every 6 inches, not every 3 inches. By the way, a 21-inch cabinet, you think you're doing yourself a favor. The 24 was less money, by the way. Right. Same thing with a 27. I could have bought a 30 for less money. So maxing, I always spend a lot of time in the kitchen arena because on a larger home, I can save a lot of money just by start picking the more valuable SKUs versus letting somebody else design these things. Again, it just takes time to insert yourself in the operation.
Yep, no closer walls on the kitchen cabinet wall. Reason for that is I don't want to wait around for my kitchen cabinet guy to come in and measure. If I don't have a closer wall, I can order those kitchen cabinets right at the beginning. I'm not sitting around waiting a week or 2 weeks for the kitchen cabinet guy to measure during the frame stage and waiting for the cabinets to actually show up. Eliminate cabinet fillers is also part of not having a closer wall. Design the kitchen for 24 or 48-inch cabinets. You're going to get the most cabinet space for the least amount of money in these areas. And like Ed said, go and look at what you're doing. Eliminate 9-inch cabinets. 9-inch cabinets are an absolute waste of time, money. Who the hell can use them? Reduce the amount of cabinets. One of the things that Ed does is he puts in a really nice window in the kitchen, and he's reducing his wall cabinets by putting in a window, an oversized window. The other thing is go ahead.
Go ahead, Chuck. I just helped the builder last week. We put a 48-inch window in the kitchen, 48-inch, and I forget how tall it was, 48 inches wide. He had a 36. It was a very data look. This 48-inch window cost about the same as the 36, by the way. It was a sliding window, not a double hung. But we reduced the cabinets and made it look better. So not only did I lower the cost, I increased the perceived value. It's not always just about cost. It's how do I make it look better? If it looks better, you can charge more.
Absolutely. And the other thing is I can do a kitchen work center. It's a desk instead of a cabinet. It's going to cost less. I can do blind corners instead of lazy Susans. Lazy Susans could be in my design center, but my standard is a blind corner. I can also increase my breakfast nook and reduce my kitchen cabinets and my island. And we've done this with builders to where I've taken off 2 wall cabinets, 2 base cabinets, plus a base cabinet out of the island. Just by opening up the breakfast nook so you could actually have a table with some chairs around it where somebody can actually work there or eat there. Lower your ceiling heights to 9-foot standard as opposed to 10. I can offer the 10 as out of my design center. Lower the second floor ceiling heights. Doesn't have to be the same ceiling height as the main floor. Reduce the number of windows. Standardize your window sizes for all the plans across the board. What does that do? Well, that's going to reduce my costs probably from my window supplier because he can stockpile that. So I have standard windows. I can tell him how many of those windows I'm going to use, so he can have an inventory of those windows, and it makes it a lot easier for him to work with me. Eliminate transom windows. Raise windows to a minimum of 16 inches off the floor to eliminate the need for tempered glass for the windows. Eliminate the 1-foot window over the tub in the shower and the main bath. I got a fart fan in the bathroom. What in the hell do I need to have that little 1-foot window over top of the shower? It's a waste of money. Eliminate the window for the stair landing. Again, that needs to be tempered glass. So I want to eliminate that, and eliminate the window over the tub in the shower, or at least have a transom window or over the tub, because again, that's going to be a tempered glass window. Eliminate, that's what I said here. So I have a clear story window, and I don't have to deal with tempered glass. Lower the pitch of the roof. Walkable roof, 5.5 by over 12 or less. Even 2-foot modules for the length of the top cord, which we talked about earlier. Eliminate crown molding and coffered ceilings. I see that all the time, and it's painted the same white ceiling. Nobody can see it. If I'm going to put the crown molding up and that coffered ceiling, at least give it a different tone of paint so somebody actually knows that you spent some money up there. Crown molding only in the dining room is standard, optional in other areas. Coming from my design center. Drywall wrap or half jam the bifold and bypass closed closet doors that you have. Eliminate window trim on all or at least second floor windows. Second floor windows, the last time the last time that anybody saw those windows was before they put the drapes up or their sheets up when they first bought the house, and the next time they're going to see it is when they take the drapery down to move from the house. So again, especially in the bedroom areas, you can drywall wrap and there's no problem with that. 1-piece crown molding instead of 3-piece crown molding. I see that a lot in the southeast, to where they've got massive 3-piece crown molding and they can do 1-piece. Maybe 3-piece on the main floor, 1-piece on the second floor if they're putting crown molding on both floors. Reduce the size of the base molding. Reduce the amount of handrail and pickets. The cheapest way to do this is half walls. Are much cheaper than handrail. The other thing is I go into houses, I see so much handrail that I lose the drama of the staircase. If I got the staircase and I got a second floor, maybe I'm going to put a half wall up on the second floor. First off, it's going to give me privacy for the kids, so they can get from their bedrooms to the bathroom. Plus, it's going to enhance the look of that staircase, because that is going to be a focal point where the staircase is. Fir handrail versus oak handrail. It's going to be cheaper. It looks the same as far as the customer is concerned. Have your handrail die into, not over, the balusters at the bottom of the stairs. And eliminate the rosettes. Install a piece of deadwood and have your handrail die into the wall, but eliminate the rosettes. Those rosettes are very expensive. They always look like hell because they're never installed properly, or they overhang the edge of the wall, or they aren't totally square and how they were installed. I look at that and I say, just eliminate it, put some deadwood in, and have the handrail just die into the wall. It's going to save you a lot of money, and it's going to look better. Eliminate the front door side light, kick plate, or peepholes. Now, I might keep the side light, but maybe the kick plate and the peephole disappear. Minimize angled walls. They consume a lot of space, and they cause some barriers internally within the house. Build over top of the garage. We talked about that. Use attic trusses. Use gable and truss over the common wall between the garage and the house. That's going to eliminate the need to drywall the ceiling of the garage, because I will use that gable end truss over top of that common wall, and I would just drywall with the 5/8" drywall firewall that gable end truss. Frame non-load bearing walls on 24-inch centers, and again, consider using 2x3s as opposed to 2x4s. Use ladder tees for all wall intersections. Use a California corner or the 2-stud corner at every one of the external corners that you have in the operation. Minimize 3-way switches. Switch outlets instead of a ceiling light in the bedrooms. Eliminates a fixture. Standard round toilets instead of elongated toilets. Again, elongated toilets can go through my design center. Eliminate the bath banjo tops. That's going to reduce the mirror size. And eliminate the need to cut bath mirrors for outlets and light fixtures. That drives me nuts. That is very, very expensive. The chances of busting the mirror is huge, but I continually see it. I thought we were over all that stuff in construction, but I still see it as I go around the country and look at houses. Okay, this is something that Ed just recently put together, and I'll let Ed kind of talk about this. And this is one of the things. If you're interested in any of this stuff, contact us. Contact and spend some time with Ed. He excels at all these little ideas that we just talked about. Okay, Ed, go.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So a couple of things to summarize what you just talked about, Chuck, is there's a lot of ideas here. Most of these ideas you have to think about and incorporate in the design process. You got to think about it up front. Chuck just talked about it. I can't stand it. I walk into a bathroom and I see this cluster of switches because nobody thought about it. And I have to do custom mirrors and glass and all kinds of silly stuff. This all has to be done up front in the design process. And to quote Emma, I've got to have the discipline to go through each one of these rooms up front and think about it. Next thing I want to bring up is buy product line. Not every one of these ideas. I mean, a lot of people, you're sitting there thinking, well, I can't do that in this product line. Well, you might be right. Certain things are appropriate in the right product line. So you got to think about all these ideas by product line. Most of these ideas behind the drywall don't matter about product line. There's nobody ever says in a market, when you have a marketing function, have a bunch of prospects and realtors, wow, this builder has taller eye joists than somebody else. They can't see it. So think about looking at these things by product line. Sometimes when I'm working with builders is we can't get down, we might be able to build high end, but we can't get down low enough because it's us in the way. Sometimes I need a different architect to get into this. The last point, and we'll get into the spreadsheet, is work with your manufacturers, okay? Think about each one of these manufacturers. We've got 2 on the line, and I have done work with both these manufacturers that are our sponsors on helping design our product. Have them help you figure out how to design your product, how to incorporate their materials. There's nobody better than the manufacturers to be the expert. So what Chuck has here
the other thing, just to interrupt, the other thing is if I do all this stuff, and maybe I'm not going to, this is a laundry list of where your money is dripping through your fingers. And maybe you can't implement all this stuff. But if you can, now I have the room to go put dollars in consumer preference items.
Correct.
I can increase the quality of my countertops in my kitchens. And if I look at it, you've got basically 3 areas of the house that you want to spend your money. First off, exterior, I got to have the front elevation. I got to really pay attention to the front elevation. I got to pay attention to the entry. I got to pay attention to the kitchen, and I got to pay attention to the master bedroom, master bath. Those are the 3 areas I want to spend the money. And what I want to do is I want to save the money on all these ideas that I've got here so that I have the room to have the 3 wow areas that I need when somebody comes into my house.
Absolutely. I mean, if we do our job right and have the best, most efficient building envelope, I'm leaving a lot of money for the wow factor for the buyers. And usually with my design team, once I get the whole team realizing that I have to have enough sizzle at the end and I have to get rid of the inefficiency, everybody buys in. So this is a plan review I did for a builder last summer or last spring. I don't remember exactly when. This is $400,000, $425 price point. And their gross profit was way low. To Chuck and Emma standards, it should be about 30%. They were in the low 20%. And if we didn't do this right now, this builder would be in trouble. So what we did is we did a complete plan review. So the first thing we did is the covered entry was a little overdone on the first elevation. What we did was we created multiple elevations. We created 3 elevations. His first elevation still had a covered entry, but we reduced it. We created an elevation 2 and 3. Just by changing the elevations, we put about $8,000 to the bottom line by creating other elevations. The front door, he had a very nice front door. And what we did is went to the manufacturer, one of our manufacturers actually, and we put a very nice front door in. It just looked the same. It was just $275 less for a similar look. But without the manufacturer help, we wouldn't have gotten that. They had a lot of stone. We went through, reduced the stone. On elevation 1, we simplified the columns. He had stone-based tapered columns. Elevation 1, we went to large, very good-looking columns. And then as you went up the line, we started optioning and bought the other things in on the other columns. That was a nice savings. The kitchen window we talked about before, we optimized the kitchen window. We actually put a bigger window in and saved money on the cabinets. Master bath window and fountain room, Chuck talked about that a little bit ago. We just start changing the quantity, start looking at the catalog, coming up with better value windows. We also started reducing how many, this builder had, I think, 40 windows in the house. We got it down under 30. We also started standardizing the windows that were in houses. Just by standardizing the windows, no difference in anything else, we got a 2% discount from the manufacturer and the supply house. Again, we work with the fireplace company, the manufacturer, got a similar looking fireplace that was much more widely used by builders. That was a savings. The iJoy system. The first piece of the iJoy system was literally by bidding it. They were not bidding stuff out. They had one trade. Just by bidding it and then going around and getting some other design ideas, we saved money. The frame review was a frame walk, just seeing what was happening in the field versus what was on the plan. There were 2 different things. What was on the plan and what was specified were different. We start finding the variances. We pulled about $1,300 out just by start doing a frame walk. Value engineering the foundation. These are little things that was all by prescriptive, not by going back to the engineer and saying, what can we do in our market? Chuck talked about the pedestal stink. Manufacturer helped us with the light fixture package. Light fixture package was going back to manufacturer. We actually got a better package and still reduced the package by $300. The kitchen cabinets, again, all little details, but what we talked about, all those little ideas in the kitchen cabinets, not by cheapening the product, by the way, just by optimizing the product, we got $550 out. The kitchen island is still extremely nice. All we did was simplify the island. We also cut it down just a little tiny bit and saved a lot of money on the granite because we're into a second sheet of granite. That's actually a different savings. Chuck talked about the single bowl. The HVAC is usually big money. This house, they did 2 systems. Was spending a lot of money for nothing. We got down to a split zone, and that was through one of our manufacturers. The split zone was a huge savings. They still have 2 thermostats, one up and one down, but it's 1 unit, a very big savings. Hardwood, they just had hardwood in really silly places where it didn't need to be, pulled that out. Unit pricing, Chuck talked about the unit pricing. This is nothing that a buyer sees, by the way. This is purely by unbundling and rebundling it. Chuck talked about buying material versus, we call it a hybrid, where now I'm just paying for what we're actually using. Most of it was just cutting out the fat and reducing costs. This had nothing to do with anything that a buyer ever sees. It was just buying and negotiating. Landscape spec doesn't seem like a whole lot of money would be in a landscape spec. It was a lot of money. All we did was standardize, go back to the landscaper. We actually got better material, but we started buying material that's more readily available and locally sourced. The last piece of this, a little shameless plug, this builder wasn't taking advantage of any of the rebates. We got $1,500 back on the first round of rebate changes, okay? Pretty easy. So this is a $230,000 bricks and sticks budget. We pulled just over 10% out. And this took a little bit of work. It wasn't that much work. But by the way, in literally I think it was about 3 days, we found the 10%. The president of the company put the challenge out at 5%. We found 10%. And then it took about a month to get all that money back, renegotiated, and into the purchase order system. So it's not that hard, guys. It really isn't. But most of it can be found, even more than this, is by actually starting from the beginning in the design process. Our next segment, we'll get into a little bit more about that, how to start that out front. But this is easy money. So, Chuck, we've got about 10 minutes left. Are we doing questions and answers?
Yeah,
Do you have more comments?
Go to the next slide.
How about that?
This is turning it over to Emma Jane, and to talk about some of the advantages of the builder partnerships. Emma Jane?
Yep, I'm here. Well, and Ed pretty much gave a pretty good visual about taking advantage of your relationships with builder partnerships and taking full advantage of that through our rebate program, but also through the relationships that we've established, not only with the builders, but also with the manufacturers. So whenever you need any assistance, you can always lean on us to help you with that. Go ahead to the next slide, Chuck.
Okay. I had to go get a wire from my other computer because my headset's starting to die.
Oh, okay. Here's a list of all of our manufacturers that we work with on a regular basis. And as you saw today, we had a couple of those manufacturers sponsoring. But please feel free to take advantage of the relationships we've established with these guys. They have great products. We only work with the best. So you can take a look at that. You can get to that information on our website at builderpartnerships.com. Go ahead. And then this is a list of all of our different services. Ed kind of touched base on our rebates. We're constantly in communication with trying to work with the manufacturers to help you get the best rebates available and find the right connections there. We do offer live training, which has been suspended for right now, but we do have our online training with our webinar Wednesdays, and I want you to keep your eyes open for information coming out early next week on HBU, Home Builder University, where we're going to be offering 2 sessions starting in May, Purchasing 101, and the other one is Principles of Finance and Investing. That one will be run by Jim Weigel. We have 2 webinars coming up with Ed and Jim. Ed's going to be in 2 weeks. He's going to talk about value engineering, and Jim is going to be talking next week about investing and financing during this crisis. We also have our consulting services, which if you have any further questions or need a little deeper dive, we can come and help you with that. And then obviously,
yeah, just a little comment on that.
Yeah.
For Ed to be able to do some of this review of the plans and so forth, he can do that remotely. If you have electronic plans, you can get him the electronic plans with the specifications, and he can do 90% of what he does remotely through GoToMeeting or Zoom, and sit with your team and go through some of the recommendations that he had on that. I think probably that was done remotely. Is that right, Ed?
Yeah, I'm working with 4 builders right now, and we started out, first was plan analytics, make sure they're selling the most profitable plan, which by the way, they were not. And then we're taking the best selling plans, and we're literally finding anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000. And my next meeting after this one is we're actually meeting with the architect. We're trying to get the plans changed. Literally, we started this 10 days ago. We're doing the final review of the plans, and then we're going to marketing drawings. And then next week, we're actually releasing the new plans with the cost savings. So in 3 weeks, we realized the savings.
wow.
Yeah, and that's done remotely. So you look at this and you say, well, I can't afford to have somebody come and spend 3 days on my job site. You don't need to. We can do most of this stuff remotely.
I love to get out, but I'm not allowed. I feel like I'm grounded. I am grounded.
Literally.
Okay, sorry for the interruption.
No, that's okay. And you might have already seen some of our newsletters that we have the data transfer through Mark Systems and working with COVA on that as well. We have surveys, which we talked about in the webinar today for builder of choice, employer of choice, and the customer service one. And then of course we have our builder groups, which meet on a regular basis to do benchmarking against each other. And basically it's a support group for all builders. So
Yeah, and that's basically where I've spent the last 3 weeks. We right now have like Friday, I have 2 builder group meetings to go over what has happened in the last 3 or 4 weeks and what do we do, how do we change the way we operate, things of that nature. So the builder groups are fantastic. It's really peer-to-peer discussions of issues. So it's kind of a support group that we set up for our builders. Some of them have been, and we've been with one builder group since the 80s.
yes,
With one of the builder groups that we work with.
excellent. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. And here we are with our webinar Wednesdays. You can review the recordings at builderpartnerships.com/events, and then click on the webinars link, and that will show you all of the webinars that we've done and give you the upcoming webinars as well as the links for the recorded webinars. I don't know, Jim, do you want to share real quickly, like 30 seconds, what you're going to be talking about on next Wednesday?
Sure. We're going to talk about finance and investment for home builders. And basically, we're going to answer a few questions. What are the potential returns and risks currently faced by our home building businesses, its assets and equity, owner's equity, and our personal assets and equity? What are some actions we can take to reduce those risks and enhance those returns? What's the impact of having more or less land or cash right now in a few months or years? When and how should we buy more land? What's the usefulness and dangers of all these economic and other kinds of forecasts we keep hearing about? Maybe what kind of indicators we should watch to assess where we are and when we should take more action? How will lenders and investors look at me or my business as an opportunity or a risk? I think many of the answers to these questions you probably haven't heard of, or if you have, you may have ignored them. I know I have over the years. That's it.
Well, thank you, Jim. We look forward to hearing from you next week. We will be sending out the registration for that this Friday, and we will also be recording that. So if you do register for the webinar and not able to get on, or at that exact time, we will be sending out the link for the recording shortly after the webinar. And you'll be getting the recording from this webinar in 24 hours, even if you were on the webinar or not. Okay, next slide, Chuck. Thank you, Jim.
Sure.
And then our last slide is question or answer. It looks like we have a couple questions here. Oh, will you share Ed's contact information? Hey, do you want to go to the next slide, Chuck? I believe his, oh,
Yep.
your
I'll go to that. There you go. There's the contact information.
There is Ed's contact information for you right there. You can reach us through our website, or you can reach Ed directly at ed@builderpartnerships.com.
Yeah, that phone number is our office phone number, and right now that is being forwarded so that we, even though the office is somewhat closed, Emma and I go to the office on a daily basis, so we're there. But the messages go to our mobile phones or our computers so that we can respond back to you if you don't get an answer when you contact that office number.
Yep. Are there any other questions, or did Chuck and Ed do a pretty thorough job of answering all of your questions today?
I would like to make one comment. Support our manufacturers. They're supporting you. Like you said, we look for 2 to 3 manufacturers per webinar to support the webinar costs so that we can offer these free. So they're supporting you. I recommend that you turn to tables and support them also. So take a look at who we've got in builder partnerships and try to use them. They're true partners. Also, don't forget that they do have resources available to help you. They've got hotlines, they've got engineers to be able to help you design your product. There's a ton of information that our manufacturers have available for you guys. Okay, questions?
Yeah, man.
Go ahead, Ed.
No, I was going to say, I personally have used AZEK and Silldry. AZEK to help, really dress up the elevations cost effectively and long-term performance. And Silldry is just an awesome product to ensure the long-term viability of your, I've done a lot of remediation in my past, and Silldry is an awesome product. So I just want to give those two a plug.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. It looks like we don't have any more questions. Thank you all so much for joining us today. If you think of questions later, feel free to email me or Ed or Chuck, and we'll be sure to get you an answer as quickly as possible. If you need anything else, we're here for you. Have a great day and stay safe.
Yeah, just one thing, sign up for the next webinars as soon as possible. This webinar, we had over 200 people that signed up. We have 100 slots. So I pitch that and make sure that you come in early. For those of you that waited till the end, you might not have been able to get in. So just pay attention. There's a ton of information that we're trying to distribute at this point through the webinars.
Yep, and if you do need we do have the link available, so if you're not able to get in, always email me and I can send you a link as soon as it becomes available. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank
All
you.
right, see you guys.
Thank you.